Well, hi everyone. Welcome to our second series with Dow and L'Oreal. We are so excited to have everyone here today. A few weeks ago, we spent time talking about the ingredients that go into beauty products. So, really talking about some of the chemistry that goes on there. And today, we're going to talk about the process of how those ingredients become the products that are on your shelf or in your homes that you know and love. So, we have the best of the best here. If anyone is new to our Empower Hours, our panelists are, their fingers are ready to answer your questions in the chat. We have a whole program ready for you, but this is really your time to ask questions to these amazing, insightful, smart women here who are here to teach you and to answer your questions. So make sure you ask those questions in the chat. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it right over to Kylie, who is going to be our moderator and take us through our program today. So, Kylie, over to you.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm so excited to be here. I am calling in from New Jersey, so it is right about 7 p.m. I don't know anybody else on the East Coast, but I'm really, really excited to come and talk to everybody today. A little bit about me. I work at L'Oreal. I've been at L'Oreal for about 13 years. I actually started college with chemical engineering, realized it was way harder than I thought, and I actually left with a finance degree. But I've spent a lot of time going through what we're going to go through today. So when we talk about products, it really starts with our supplier base. So you'll see it's Dow and L'Oreal together because it does require a lot of partnerships across the board, designing, making a product come to life. You're going to see us talk about how we even source the material and how we actually manufacture our products. Then serving. So we all probably know and love Amazon and that 2-day turnaround. There's a lot of stuff that happens right before that, and we want to make sure that the products that we make get to you as a consumer right on time. And so really that's what that infographic looks like. We're going to spend some time talking about it. And I'm really excited to host. So let's turn it over and do a quick introduction of our panelists today. All right, so panelists, I'd love for you just to introduce yourself quickly with your name, your job title, and how long you've been at either Dow or L'Oreal.
All right, I'll jump off first since my face is first. Hi everyone. I'm Paige Enger. I am with Dow, which is a raw material chemical manufacturer. So really front end. And I have been there doing technical service and development as a chemist and scientist for about 16 years.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ray Riccardi. So happy to be here with you all today. I have been with L'Oreal for just a little under 11 years now. Crazy to say that. And I'm currently the director of product development for Maybelline in the US.
Hi everyone, my name is Rashmi Akhtar. I am the sourcing manager also at L'Oreal and also working on Maybelline Lip. I have been with L'Oreal for just about 4 years. Happy to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dana Apostle. I'm very excited to be chatting with you guys tonight.
All right, we might want to give Dana a minute to reconnect. Perfect. So now that we met our 4 panelists, we're going to start with some ingredients. So we're going to kick it back to Paige. Thanks for joining us from Dow, one of the key suppliers, not only just for L'Oreal, but in the industry. So if you could walk us through maybe what does a technical service and development chemist actually mean, right? What do you do every day?
Yeah, I didn't know what it meant either. In fact, I grew up just a couple hours away from Dow and didn't know it existed. So crazy where life will take you. So I went to Saginaw Valley State University, which was actually right next to Dow, and still even during my first couple years of college, didn't realize Dow was there. But I was studying science, specifically chemistry, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with that. And so, I ended up doing a co-op at Dow, and that turned into the job I have today, which technical service basically means that I am the scientist that goes out to meet with our customers, which L'Oreal being a very key one for us, and especially in the personal care industry. And I am there to support their team as they develop products. And you can actually see some of the pictures on here of what I do in order to support them. So you see lots of stripes on my arms. I go home from work a lot of days with different color swatches across my forehead. I wash hair tresses, all different kinds of hair. And that's actually my daughter in the top right-hand side looking at SEM microscope images of hair. So we use a lot of different types of, test methodologies and analytical type of equipment that will allow us to basically support the customer. So that's what I'm doing. And so I spend a lot of time actually out in New Jersey with L'Oreal, even though Dow is located in Midland, Michigan, and that's where my labs are.
Excellent. No, thanks for walking through that. And when we say even co-op too, right? That means you spend you spent a couple of months, right, during college testing things out. It's like a really good way to get your feet wet, right, in the industry.
Absolutely, yeah. So I had kind of a weird path, which I tried to make in pictorial form on here. But again, going for science, not really knowing what I wanted to do with it, but just knowing that, well, actually, I shouldn't even say I know that I liked it. I didn't necessarily like it. It was just hard, and everything else to me was boring if it wasn't hard. So I really liked the something that was super challenging. So I was going into science with no idea what I actually wanted to do. And so there was, pre-law, there was pre-med, there was education. I could go and be a teacher. There was all sorts of other things, but Dow being right down the road allowed me to do the co-op, which, as you said, is where I can actually go and work for them while still in college and kind of get my feet wet and see what that's all about. Also just make money because I was also in, yeah, I was very broke and, I'm paying my own way through school. And so was living as an RA, which is a resident assistant. I don't know if anybody's not in college yet or hasn't looked into that. Like I was working like that so that I could live there for free. And then I was on scholarship and, working a few side jobs and working at a bar. So I started working at the co-op as well. And, that actually opened quite a few doors. I'm not going to say I loved the job that I had as a co-op because you're just like cleaning glassware and, kind of doing the grunt work a bit, but I didn't even realize that existed, that there was, chemical manufacturing and what that even meant. So it was a good place to kind of learn about other options that I had, and it did ultimately land me a job in the long run. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, like I said, and they offered me when I graduated, said, you're doing a great job here. We'd love to just have you start. And what they offered to pay me was double what I would have made starting anywhere else. So I was like, sure, money, I'm in.
Very, very important. 100%. Definitely I went the student loan route, and sometimes it takes a while to pay off, but it's worth it in the end, honestly. So I think you said you've been at Dow for 16 years, right?
Yep.
I would imagine that also gives you a lot of different exposure, a lot of different types of opportunities. Can you talk about any other like roles that you had, or what does it look like versus what you actually went to college for? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, especially for this industry. And I actually speak to a lot of, young girls kind of thinking about what they want to do. And everyone's always really fascinated with personal care products. They're really interacting with them. And as a consumer, you're purchasing a lot of different kinds, you're trying all different kinds of things. And there's so many different things: lip, hair, skin, sun, color. It kind of ranges, and we interact with those products every single day. But weirdly, there's not a lot of school programs specifically dedicated to studying cosmetic or personal care science. So when I went to school, I was doing kind of more basic chemistry, synthesis type chemistry. Those classes that, again, if anybody's in them, will bore you to death. And you're like, why will I ever use this? I don't understand why this matters. But what that's really teaching you is how to learn, because then you get to a company, say like Dow or L'Oreal, and you're going to learn on the job, but you got to learn fast. And so that was the nice part is then you went to Dow and they said, okay, now here's the courses we're going to teach you. You're going to have a mentor inside this company and they're going to teach you everything you need to know that you're not going to ever learn in school, because there's a lot of things that companies hold near and dear to their hearts that they don't want people to know about unless you work for them. So yeah, I had a lot of really fun opportunities. I worked on a lot of really unique and interesting things that never commercialized, that were 20 years away from even probably being necessary or relevant. But I'm seeing some of them come to light now, like 16 years later, materials that are helping with data centers and AI and all sorts of crazy things. But yeah, I ended up in personal care kind of just almost as a fluke. It was offered to me and I was like, well, that's interesting. I think I'd like to learn more about that. Sure. And kind of dove in and then got in it and realized I love it. The other companies you get to work with, like L'Oreal, it's really interesting and they're so engaged with the communities that they serve and the people. And, I find the marketing really intriguing and yeah, I never left.
Okay. Awesome. Sometimes. All right. Thank you, Paige. We're going to come back to you later on. Let's move on into Ray. So Ray, awesome. Give us a quick story about you.
Absolutely. I'll just wait to get the slide up to give everybody a visual here. Perfect. So, hey, everybody. I originally went to college for mechanical engineering. I went to Lehigh University out in Pennsylvania, if anybody is familiar. Loved it. I was in high school just super interested in math and cars. Those were like my two passions. So I went into mechanical engineering. I did a minor in product design, honestly thinking that I was going to go work for my favorite Jeep. That's a little picture there. I should have put a picture of my own Jeep, but it looks very similar to this. But as a teenager, I was my dad had no sons and I was the oldest daughter. So I turned into the son. I worked on cars. We built things together mechanically. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to go work for cars. But when I finally was reaching the point of looking for internships and looking for jobs, I actually came across L'Oreal, who I would never think is a company that had this technical background and so many job opportunities in the technical field. And as it turns out, L'Oreal not only is the face of all of these wonderful beauty products that we see on the market, but we have our own massive network of manufacturing plants around the world, 5 of which are in North America. And we have a network of distribution centers and so many other technically based facilities around the world. So I ended up with L'Oreal. So it went from cars to makeup. And honestly, I loved it. I couldn't be happier. In my 11 years at L'Oreal, I started out in the manufacturing plant in Piscataway, New Jersey. I worked on a variety of products in the manufacturing line. So if you're thinking about making a cake, right, we do the batching. So we use the chemicals and raw materials that Paige was talking about through her career. We mix it up like it's a recipe to make your favorite cake in massive, massive, massive tanks all at once. And then we bring it over into the filling lines where you take your bottle, your jar, your tube, you squirt the bulk or whatever it is, the lotion, the serum inside, seal it up, cap it off, send it out in a box. And that's what ends up getting shipped to retailers and your favorite drugstore, Ulta, etc. So in that manufacturing process, that's where I spent my first 6 years of my career, learning really about all of the behind the scenes of how it's made. And that little picture there at the bottom was me and some of my 2 closest friends I still have at L'Oreal. We were day one interns and started our L'Oreal career together. And then, of course, everything in makeup and cosmetics really expanded for me. I started to, now 6 years in L'Oreal, really learn what else is out there that I could be interested in, having this technical background. But I have a lot of mind and interest for business. And now I saw how it's made. And I said, well, who even thinks of this, right? How do you come up with the ideas? So my last 5 years of being in L'Oreal, I transferred over to what we call product development or operations product development. This is where I came over to Maybelline. I managed Essie for a while, and product development, we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth as we go. But this is the role of operations product development is the middleman almost in between marketing and the factories and the rest of the operations teams. So marketing feeds us their dreams, their ideas. This is what I would love. They have their drawings and their pictures of what they're dreaming of. We, understanding the technical aspect as well as the business, start to translate that into, okay, here's what it's actually going to take to make it. And then we lead the project. We do the project management through the rest of operations, from scaling up the formula to building and designing the packaging to starting to order, procure, do all of the testing, et cetera, until it becomes a finished product manufactured in one of the factories that I talked about before and shipped off to your favorite retailer. So I really love this. Maybelline, as a lot of you may know, I was a consumer of Maybelline starting with 12, 14 years old, and now I'm still working on it. We're a global brand, and we actually lead all of the other global zones here in the US. So we get to see a lot about what all of our other global cultures and hair types and skin types, and we really try to accommodate everybody in our launch process. So anywho, that's a bit more detail about my career path.
No, it's perfect. I'm also Team Piscataway, New Jersey. That was my first job at L'Oreal as a launch manager. So near and dear. And that's when you actually get to see things up front in person versus not just behind a textbook or even a video camera. So it's super exciting watching everything actually get made. My last question to you, either through L'Oreal or maybe at Lehigh, what was your favorite class, training, or even a supplier visit where you kind of really fell in love with what you're doing?
That's a great question. I can answer it in two parts. My favorite class was math, which is crazy. I loved all the calculus. I know there's a lot of people out there that hate it. That was my favorite. It's definitely super nerd when it comes to the math stuff. Even my husband still today, I do basic life problems with math and calculus. It's funny, but anywho, I really relate that every day to problem solving in L'Oreal, bringing it to product development. I definitely use more of my true mechanical engineering and math skills at the factory. But now it's really about problem solving, thinking outside the box, thinking critically towards finding solutions that maybe nobody has ever heard of before, and developing new processes and systems. But maybe I can relate that to favorite supplier visit. Actually, when I first started my career in the Piscataway manufacturing plant, and maybe just to describe it for everybody, what we do in L'Oreal to be able to get the biggest bang for our buck, right? Try to make things with the most level of efficiency. We have a lot of automation. So we have maybe one person that's running the entire line full of machines to fill this product from start to finish. I did a supplier visit early on. L'Oreal was the only manufacturing plant I've ever seen. And I went to one of our subcontractors, somebody that we go to make batch and fill product that we don't have the skills and expertise to do internally to L'Oreal. The subcontractor, I was so interested in going because they did all of the stuff we could never dream of building equipment to do. It was so complex. It was so technical. And I was so curious to go there and see what type of amazing next, state-of-the-art equipment do they have. And I was shocked to find that they had a 100-foot long conveyor belt with just 25 people along the conveyor belt, all doing the manual, the closing of the flaps, the manual filling of bottles, et cetera. So it really put it into perspective for me going through my L'Oreal career that anything is possible. Anything you put your mind to, anything that these marketing teams dream up, and sometimes they dream of pretty crazy things. It's all possible, but it totally depends on what resources that we want to put towards it. Something with automation obviously requires us to have specific equipment. Something that's more fully efficient, less people, goes faster. But if you want to make something that's really maybe super complex, really unique, something that's really stand out, maybe you need something that's more manual and you have to pay a little bit more to do it. So anywho, that was a great supplier visit. It really put things into perspective for me and allowed me to continue to develop that perspective through my L'Oreal career.
Excellent. Thanks, Ray. We'll talk more about development shortly too.
Awesome.
Rushmi, love to hear more about you and your journey.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here and share a little bit about sourcing at L'Oreal. So just to give a starting base, so I went to the Rutgers Business School, so a little different from all the science and engineering backgrounds here, but I studied supply chain management, and sourcing is just one piece of supply chain. So I got really interested in sourcing through some of my supply chain classes. What really brought me into the sourcing world is this idea that I can impact the environment. It was something I was very passionate about and still am through this sourcing role. So I took a green purchasing class in college, and we learned all about how we can reduce our carbon footprint, how we can work for these large companies and have a bigger impact within these companies than we would as an individual. And that idea really appealed to me. And L'Oreal became one of my top companies that I wanted to work for because they have such an incredible sustainability program. And it's such a pivotal aspect of the sourcing role. So I actually started out as a co-op also at L'Oreal. So my first brands that I managed were Kiehl's, and then also Ralph Lauren and Lancome. So just to kind of give you guys some background on what sourcing does. So we also work with development to essentially bring the packaging that's required to fill our products. And so, development brings the dreams from marketing to us. They say we want a pony and an elephant, and then we bring them back down to earth. And then we say, hey, this is our best supplier, this is our best pack, and this is our best cost. So it's really just about playing with our supplier base and doing our best to meet all the demands of each of the brands. And then, here I just have some pictures of our supplier visits. So, we go all around depending on what we're sourcing. It's really important to see how the packaging materials that you're sourcing are manufactured. And that gives you really an idea of what goes into making something that you would think is so simple, like a label or a glass bottle. You get to really see, just how many people it takes to run an operation to make something that, maybe you don't even think twice about. So after spending some time as a co-op on Kiehl's, Ralph Lauren, and Lancome, I went over to the makeup side. So I actually also was a buyer on L'Oreal Paris, but right now I am on the Maybelline lip team, so managing any of our lip products. So anything from one of our new launches, such as Lifter Gloss, to any of the iconic lip glosses that I'm sure you guys have all grown up with.
Awesome. Thank you for that. You might see my cat now currently walking through. Yep. He wanted to make an entrance. He saw the picture. He said, let's talk about the cats. I'm also team sourcing. So I started Piscataway and launched, but I also spent 4 years in sourcing. I loved it. Also didn't really know this existed. It is a very, I think, lovely role between the technical side of things. I remember going to a glass supplier for the first time. It is incredible how glass is made. I recommend anyone YouTubing how to watch glass being made. It is quite incredible. To then also the financial aspects, you want to make sure you're getting the best price of what you're doing. You want to make sure you're working with the best suppliers. How did you go from high school to sourcing manager here? Were you like super interested? I know you talked a little bit about sustainability. Is that your driving passion?
So in high school, I honestly was not really sure where I wanted to go in terms of career and life. I knew that I wanted to make an impact and help people and leave the world better than I found it, so to speak. And so, I explored a lot of different avenues, considered a lot of different things. I thought about being a lawyer. I thought about being a social worker. I thought about all of these different aspects. And, the environment was also something that I was super passionate about. It was, climate change was becoming an increasing problem. And it was something that I was really worried about, wanting to leave the world better than I had found it for, the generations to come. So actually, when I started out in college, I was doing forensic chemistry because I thought, okay, what better way to help people than to analyze all of the crime scenes and get justice. But I found that it wasn't necessarily the right fit for me. I wanted something that was a little more people forward. I am such a talker. It's probably something that helps me be really good at my job, and I liked the idea of sourcing because it was such a large it's such a large area where it kind of allows me to flex a lot of the different aspects and personalities that I have while also making a positive impact on the environment.
Excellent. Thank you, Rushmi. All right, we're going to go to Dana. Tell us more about you.
Yes. Sound check first.
Yeah, sounds good so far.
Yay. Okay. I'm so sorry about my intro. I actually lost Wi-Fi today, some storms in New Jersey over the weekend, but I'm multitasking, also using my phone. So, gotta love technology. I've been with L'Oreal for 10 years, since you guys couldn't hear me earlier. I also am a Rutgers graduate. I started on IT Cosmetics at L'Oreal. I was actually in product development, more so on the creative side, and today I'm in demand planning. So I think it really goes to show that sky's the limit. I majored in psychology in college, so also a little bit niche. I wanted to be a school psychologist, but I was going to have to foot the bill for my master's program. So I said, I'm going to start working for a couple of years and then I'll figure that out. And I absolutely fell in love with working in the beauty industry. So 20 years later this year, here I am. So currently today, I sit on the Luxe demand planning team. I support both Armani and Valentino for the Luxe division. We'll learn a little bit more about what that looks like as we dive into each function. But I would say what I love most about beauty is how fast paced we move. The consumer is always engaging with us and kind of telling us what the trends need to be. We have extremely intelligent marketing insights, and all functions within the cosmetics world are equally as important to developing the best product. So from the plant to the marketing teams, to the demand planning teams, to sourcing, everybody plays an instrumental part. And with one missing link, we can't launch a successful product. So I think the collaboration within the beauty world is what really drives me to stay.
No, absolutely. My first job out of college was in demand planning at Johnson and Johnson. So again, I'm super biased to this panel. If we can't tell, like it's just I it's so exciting though because all of these pieces come together to see it. I know you said that you went to school for psychology. You've also worked at a few other companies, not just at L'Oreal. You've done the transition from IT Cosmetics into L'Oreal. Is there anything along the way, and again, you've had other roles too, that you really enjoyed learning about? What maybe talk to us more about like the curiosity it takes to keep bouncing around and learning something new.
Yeah, I think for me, I love understanding the full scope, and it kept me so curious in wanting to, engage in different functions. So when I came to this company, I was an expert in the product development world. As I sat on the product development team, I knew that there was so much more that I wanted to learn because L'Oreal is such a massive company, and each function plays such a very important part in the end-to-end cycle. So I was exposed to all these different teams, and each time I went into a new role and collaborated with a new team, I knew I just wanted to learn more. So segued into a promotional development team where it was very operational, which really had me engaging in wanting to learn the planning side. So I think just keeping the curiosity open and knowing that if you understand the end to end, you can only do your job so much better.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Dana. So now that we got to know our panelists a little bit more, we heard a little bit about on the job learning, like translating what we go to school for versus what we actually end up in. And most of the time, you end up in something that you, one, probably didn't even know existed as a role, or something that's a little bit different. But we use a lot of the skills that we learn early through school, or either through some training, taking a chance on things, leaning into problem solving. And then even on those on the job moments. So we've heard the term internship, co-op thrown around a few times. It's kind of the same thing. It's where you get to go work for a company for maybe for the summer for like 10 weeks or a few months at a time, where you actually get to sit there and work alongside those full-time employees that really get you that on-the-job exposure. All right, we know you all more. We're going to start jumping in a little bit into the process of what it actually takes to manufacture a product. We're going to start with ingredients. And so we'll go back to Paige and Dow Chemical to walk us through what this actually looks like. At the end of the day, you can't make a product without ingredients, right? That's where everything's, we got to know what our options are. Can you tell us a little bit more? How do you actually make ingredients? How do you come up with ingredients? I'm sure there's a lot of safety testing that goes into it, quality testing, things like that. Walk us through the whole ingredient process.
It's a very long, very long process.
Sorry, let's walk us through that speed function, you know?
Yes. Quickly walking you through what generally takes 10 plus years per ingredient, just to then get it to L'Oreal for them to take another, 7 to 10 years to develop what's inside the bottle. So you're looking at super, super long cycles a lot of times. Sometimes things can go faster if the safety is already kind of known. It's maybe a small change that made a big difference. So we have a lot of the data already. But yeah, ultimately, sitting on the raw material side of things is interesting because you don't make the end product, but you have to really understand that end product to understand what do we do to solve it. So I saw something in the chat about marketing, and honestly, I got to spend a little bit of time in marketing when I first started at Dow as well. It was like a weird 6-month thing. They're like, you're going to go do marketing and just start calling people and asking them what their problems are. It was like, okay, that's interesting. So that's a lot of how it starts. It's just, what's the problem statement? And I actually saw another, question in the chat about like SPF and color cosmetics. And like, yeah, that's a big problem statement that we work on all the time because the SPF might change the pigment color. So there's your problem statement. So now how do I develop a raw material that might solve that problem? And there's so many different ways to go about it. You could go about it through addressing the actual pigment itself, through addressing the SPF itself, through addressing how the two things go together. How is the formula have water in it or not have water in it? That's another way to address it. Or what fluid do you throw in to help spread the thing around? So basically, you've just got like unlimited variables and unlimited creativity to kind of go and address these things. So you start and you take time and you cycle through, and maybe something works, so you go back to the beginning and you try again and you try again and you try again. But that's science, right? That's the scientific method. So I think if you really like bring it back to bare bones, it's scientific method, and just knowing that what that means is just cycling back over and over and continually looking at a problem with a hypothesis and addressing it, and then going back and doing it over again, and then always realizing that science is ever changing. So we have one solution, but now maybe there's a new sunscreen active on the market. Actually, in fact, the FDA is just now approving like its first new sunscreen active in like decades. So now that that's going to enter into play, do our existing solutions still work? Or do we need to go back to the drawing board for some things that we addressed a few years ago to now enable this other new ingredient? So yeah, again, it's fun. You have to know. And I think in this market, we're also consumers. So that helps a bit with understanding the problem statements. But, you start there, you're engaging with people, you're engaging with consumers, then you get to be creative. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We at L'Oreal, we say test and learn, right? So that's a lot of the time of just you test something out and you learn from it. Is there anything that happens in the lab when you are testing and maybe learning before you would even maybe introduce it to a L'Oreal research and innovation scientist to then take it and make something from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sometimes, but I will say L'Oreal and Dow actually work really, really close together. That's not always the norm with a lot of companies in the industry to work that closely with the raw material supplier. But we have a really good relationship where L'Oreal will also help us understand the problem statements. They are marketing leaders in this industry, right? They know the consumer better than we could ever pretend. I mean, I'm a consumer, but they know me better than I know myself because I buy things because I see their marketing, even though I know how that works. And maybe that's not exactly what it is, but I'll still, I'm suckered in. So they know what they're doing. They're experts in this space. So we often go to them pretty early on, actually, in a lot of what we're developing and just say, hey, does this sound reasonable to you? And will you try it out in what you're thinking of doing? Because I kind of mentioned this in the beginning too. You don't learn this in college. It's not something you learn until you're in that company. And so there's things that L'Oreal does that they don't tell people, not even, raw material suppliers that they do or how they make something unless you're there working in L'Oreal and doing it, right? So for us, sometimes it's beneficial to give L'Oreal a chance to look at some things early to understand how it's going to work. And again, the earlier in that cycle, you can pull people in to understand, is this going to be a real solution? Is this a long-term solution? Is this the best solution? So the more brains you got together, the better. So, we like to tag L'Oreal's brain too, not just our own. But we do a lot of stuff up front, as well. And I think you mentioned like safety, sustainability, things like that. We're spending a lot of time doing that ourselves. There's an entire group of chemists at Dow that all they do is toxicology. It's actually the largest toxicology group of any chemical manufacturer in the world. So they spend a ton of time just doing that before we're even allowed to maybe look at something or maybe touch something. You saw the funny pictures of me with stripes all over my face and arm. There's a lot of toxicology that goes into me even being able to try my own things just because they're not, commercially vetted. But
yeah, no, safety is definitely number one priority, 100%. And so when we talk about launching new products, I think you mentioned it too. There's a couple ways we can launch something. It could be ingredient maybe focus. We found a super innovative ingredient. We're going to give it to our R&I scientists that are going to research it, make a beautiful formula, and then go pitch it to brands. Or to your point about a problem statement, a brand might say, hey, I have a hole in the market, and I know I want to make a product that's going to fill that market hole. So I'm going to pivot over to Ray to talk through the development process. Again, now that we have the ingredients, we know our base, we can get the formula ready with our research scientists. How do we actually get it from this concept and even maybe a base formula that no one knows what it might be called into that finished product? And how do you work with your teams on that?
Absolutely. So as Paige mentioned in the formula and chemical development process, there's a lot of steps. So I'm going to pick some of the most notable milestones. So starting off, of course, you have the idea. You hit the nail on the head that the idea can either be that our technical teams are pushing something new and cool that they think should be used on the market, or the marketing team is thinking of their own creative idea, whether it's a gap, maybe it's a trend we're trying to hit, and then we create a product around that. So once we have those ideas and it's at the lab scale, in my mind, from an operations product development perspective, it splits into two trains of thought and two project tracks. First is the formula. So we have a number of milestones in the formula. We start at a lab batch, right? So that's like what we were describing is like in a beaker, in a very small scale, something that somebody has, done at a kitchen scale, making a batch of brownies. That's how we start.
It's that tester pancake, right?
Exactly. You got to test it. You scale up from there a number of times. We do, maybe I can talk in kilograms, even though I know it probably won't mean anything, but we start at something super small. Maybe it's a 1 kilogram or 2 kilogram batch. We scale up to something like 30 or 50 kilograms and do some more additional testing. Make sure that Paige talked about stability, make sure that the formula, the recipe, the ingredients, it still works at a larger scale. And then we scale up even larger to the factory. Now, instead of 30 or 50 kilograms, now we might be doing 5,000 kilograms or 10,000 kilograms at a time. So we have to do that testing to make sure the formula performs the same, is the same throughout that type of scale up. At the same time, we're doing formula testing. So we're making sure, and I've seen a lot of questions in the chat, making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do from a consumer perspective. If there's an end result we're looking for on makeup, or there's a skincare active ingredient that's supposed to reduce wrinkles or even skin tone or whatever it might be, we're making sure we're doing the testing associated with that to ensure our claims to the market. And at the same time, we're doing all other testing that L'Oreal and a bunch of other companies, we have set of standards. There's safety testing. So we have to make sure it's, of course, safe for all consumers. It's safe as it goes through the lifespan of the product, from manufacturing to all of the hot trucks, cold trucks, wherever it might see itself through the lifespan and sitting on a retailer shelf. We do aging tests just to make sure that maybe it's sitting on a shelf at a CVS for 4 months, 6 months, that it still gives you the same performance. And we do other tests like compatibility, making sure that the formula works well and doesn't have any ill effects inside the packaging that we intend to put it in. It's just to name a few. We have a long, long list of formula tests, but that's really the formula track. Once all of that testing is done, we give a piece of paperwork to the factory and to all of the cross-functional teams that says, this formula is good to go. Here's the recipe. Here's what it takes. Go ahead and start making it. On the other track, we talk about packaging. So packaging, it starts with an idea as well. And this, especially coming from a brand like Maybelline, we have huge, huge volumes where we have to essentially custom design each of our own packs to be able to have the right capacity to be able to launch at the millions and millions globally that we do every year. So from a Maybelline perspective, we have an idea. We're going to use our packaging and engineering teams to develop how does that actually look in a 3D. So we're using a lot of 3D modeling, computer software that turns into maybe a 3D printed model. And all of that, for those that are in maybe mechanical engineering even type classes, we actually build custom molds. So if you've ever seen, maybe we could use baking as an example. Your muffin tray is a mold, right? You put the muffin mix in the tray, you bake it, it comes out in the same shape. Think about that's the same for plastic, for glass, for a lot of things. So we'll design that with the engineering team. We bring in suppliers like Rushmi does for Maybelline, and we bring in suppliers that'll actually build those designs out for us that we at L'Oreal have created. And we bring that through an entire set of tests, very strict tests throughout that lifespan as well, until we get to the end as well. We call it the finished goods specification. And we say, hey, everything works. It meets what it's supposed to do. We're done. All the tests pass. Then the two combine. Now we bring the formula and the pack back together. We fill it in the manufacturing factory and send it off to our retailers. So long-winded answer, but that's the long story short of manufacturing and development.
No, definitely. We want to make sure exactly the formula works as intended. Then we want to make sure it's actually made consistently. So every time you get that mascara, it's the same mascara every time you buy it. Right. Mm-hmm. And if you do order it, let's say from Amazon, it shows up not broken, right? We want to make sure because you're
not broken, not melted. We want to make sure there's no.
You might sit outside like today in like 90-degree weather, and we want to make sure it looks good, right?
Exactly.
So that's how we kind of get that product in. We have our base formula, or we know what marketing wants.
If you want to go to ways that you could.
We also now want to talk through a little bit more on packaging. So I'm going to tag Rushmi in on this. The way that something is packaged also plays a key part, right, into how a consumer is going to take that off the shelf. Maybe it's an eye-catching thing. We also look at from a DEI point of view, right? L'Oreal came out with a HAPTA device that like the package itself can be used for someone that has different abilities. Talk to me more about how you're going to go out in the market, find vendors, suppliers, or might even find a package itself that L'Oreal wants to launch. How does that actually work, and how do you get it to, let's say, Ray and product development?
So of course, the packaging component plays a large role in launching a new product. So from a launch conception, we get the idea from the development team that will kick off, hey guys, we want to launch this brand new innovative tube, for example. And we get what the product looks like, what materials are required based on the formula. So a lot of that pre-work is done by the development teams, and we partner with the packaging teams to define that package. And we scout with some of our trusted suppliers that are defined by our other sourcing team called the category sourcing team. So they define our long-term strategies. And so we partner with a lot of these key players to understand who can be the most reliable to provide this packaging component to us. And with sourcing, cost is just the tip of the iceberg. So when working for a large company like L'Oréal and for a brand as well known as Maybelline, there's a lot that goes into it, into sourcing a component other than cost. So obviously Maybelline it's meant to be an affordable product. It's meant to be available to the mass consumer. So cost is definitely very important. So we have a lot of negotiations, a lot of studies in the market to understand what kind of negotiation power we have. We track things like the rate of plastics, such as the way you would track the cost of gasoline. It goes up and down, making sure that we have a fair price. But other than that, we have a total of 5 pillars that we base all of our sourcing strategies on. So cost is just one of them. The other is, of course, sustainability. So we want to work with vendors who are really prioritizing sustainability, not just in the packaging pieces that we're buying, but also in how they run their factory. How are they conserving their water? What are they doing with their scrap? And then beyond sustainability, we also have innovation. So we want to work with partners who are at the cutting edge of their expertise, who are coming to us with new ideas, with innovative packaging components that we can then propose to our development teams to help the brand. And then we have agility / supply chain. So that's about how fast can we get it to our factories. So when we have a new launch, we have something called a PAD. It stands for product availability date. It is one of the most important dates of a launch. And ensuring that we get the packaging component on time is critical to making sure that the launch hits the markets when the trend is still up and happening. And especially now with this TikTok virality effect, we know that agility is more important than ever. So you want to make sure that you're getting your components on in a reasonable time, because you never know when someone will post a video that goes viral and all of a sudden you need a million sky-high mascaras. So that's another aspect of it as well. And then towards the quarter that the suppliers that we're working with are paying their employees. So that's a really important aspect as well, to make sure that we're sourcing sustainably, but also that our suppliers are.
Did Rushmi go out for everybody?
I thought it was just me. Yeah.
All right. No, I think Rushmi, you were talking about our programs to make sure that the suppliers we also work with are giving back to the consumer too, right? I think that's how you introduce yourself to. You want to leave the world a better place than when we found it. So we also try to do that from a supplier-based point of view. That with our big L'Oreal muscle, we're also influencing that as well. So thank you for walking us through that from the supplier base. And exactly as you talked about TikTok, the virality of everything, leaning in on trends, finding that market gap. Let's bring Dana back in if she's back on, because I want to talk through how do we even know how much to make of the product that we're launching, and how do we generate some of those sales? So do we have Dana here still?
Yes, I'm here. Sound check.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So my job and my team's job as the demand planner is really to collaborate with marketing from very early on in the launch development stage, to really understand what their vision is, their go-to-market plan, competitive benchmarks, launch performance history. So if we launched something within the same category last year, how did that perform? And we really need to understand all of these things to lead us to what that 12-month retail ambition will be. So we tend to look at our launches from a 12-month perspective, and how much do we anticipate in making at a retail level in 1 year. So from there, my team will take all of this information and convert the ambition into the units that we need to sell in to our retailers for our consumers to purchase. So we need to make sure that the collaboration from the start is with marketing, and then we see that through with all of the other cross-functional teams. Most importantly, at the end stage with our supply planning teams. They're the ones that are going to enable the stock to arrive on time. So back to that PAD, product availability date, we need to make sure that at launch stage we have enough units to sell in for our consumers to purchase to make that retail ambition.
Yeah. So talk to me about, because to me, I think demand planning, you are frontline with marketing. You're also understanding the retail landscape. And I know you
Exactly.
work in Lux, so we've got, let's say, a Sephora that's going to compete with an Ulta that might also compete with that TikTok shop, Macy's. Like, how do you know where to send all this stuff?
So every brand that we have in our Lux portfolio, so if I use Armani as an example, every brand has a weight of business by retailer, and we know that because we review the data every single month, right? So Armani makeup might sell better at Sephora, but our fragrances might sell better in Macy's. So we know our weight of business by retailer, and we know that we need to sell in a certain amount of each product to each retailer. We partner extremely closely, not only with marketing, but we have customer service teams at L'Oréal that service our retailers to understand how they view the demand. So there's so many cross-reference points between launch stage and when something becomes, let's say, a basic catalog SKU that we continue to replenish, so that we can really ensure that we're keeping up with the trend. The trend, it takes sometimes 6 months to understand what a trend looks like for some of our new launches. So every single month we're reviewing with all of the cross-functional teams what that trend looks like at a SKU level.
No, thank you for that. And I think as we went through this cycle, right, we see it all starts, let's say, with an ingredient and a company that's going to make it for us, building that formula with the research team, scaling that up into how can we actually manufacture this consistently at the volume we need, to do we have the right vendors that can deliver everything on time, on quality, on cost, being sustainable all through that, and make sure that it actually shows up to the consumer. So in our last question, and I'll ask it for everybody, give me your elevator pitch on this one. But what's one thing that consumers don't realize that go into actually making a product? I'll kick it off with, let's say, Paige.
Yeah. So we can start with the ingredient side of it. And I was just kind of like seeing some questions pop up and what would be my answer actually. I think there is a lot of time in the consumer space, and I'm guilty of it as well, of not realizing that the material has been tested, vetted for safety. Incidentals, there's things kind of outside of control, but nobody is intentionally putting out something that's gonna hurt you or make you allergic or be an irritant, because then we'd never sell product again. And the ultimate goal is to get people to love it, like it, want it, keep using it, keep buying it, right? And so our intention is always to put out the safest product that works the best. There's not a big, group of people who are like, let's just, hurt everyone. Nobody wants to do that. So, but it's weird, you get in like the TikTok spirals and like you start listening to people and you're like, do people think we're trying to do that? Like nobody's trying to do that. So there's so much safety and toxicology and all of the thoughts. I mean, everything we've been talking about, there's so many pieces across this, with the end goal being putting out the best product that's the safest, that's stable, that's not going to harm anyone, that's ultimately going to make somebody's life better. That's the ultimate goal, right? And I think
Yeah.
when we think about beauty, right, that's a big piece of it, is making somebody feel good, improving their quality of life in some kind of way, simplifying their routine, helping, we just want people to feel good. So
Yeah.
that's my answer.
All right. Great. Thanks, Paige. Anybody else? What's something we don't think we consumers realize?
I don't think the consumer realizes when we see virality of our forecast, right? How difficult it is to keep up with that trend and all of the
Mm.
hard work behind the scenes that needs to happen in order to continue fueling the consumer. And it's also very easy to lose the consumer if you don't have the right amount of stock in the right doors. So there's
Mm-hmm.
such a huge analysis component to making sure that our consumers are happy. And I think that's definitely one thing that before I was really in this business, especially from a demand planning perspective, it did not really resonate. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It takes a long time, right? And I don't want you buying your competitor.
Exactly.
Awesome. Anyone else before our lightning round? AKA the one question. All right, perfect. So as we close out, we've got a lot of folks on the phone that are thinking about, what does my life look like in 20 years from now too, as we listen to all your experience. What is either a piece of advice, a phrase, a word, something you would give to your younger self?
Maybe I could start. I would definitely tell myself, don't put too much pressure on yourself. When you're so early in your development, in your career, in your education, sometimes there's a lot of pressure to figure out what you want to do right now. And then you go all in towards that path. But what I hope everybody saw here today is that you follow your interests, you network, you understand what's out there broadly, and you'll find your way. And even if you go down one path and you choose a few years later to change, there's tons and tons of opportunities out there. So, anywho, in conclusion, I would tell myself, don't put too much pressure. You didn't have to go into cars. You found a path in makeup, and you love every day. So you never know where you're going to land that you'll fall in love with.
Great. Who's next?
I can go. I think mine is
I can
kind of.
go. I would say keep the. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead,
We'll go with
Dana.
Rushmi. We'll go with Rushmi.
So mine is kind of on a similar path to Ray, but just be open and be curious. The world is so, so much bigger than you could possibly imagine. So ask questions and maybe you'll find something that you didn't know.
I'm going to mirror that. I was going to say leave your curiosity open because you never know what's on the other side. I love learning new things. I think if you pigeonhole, you have no idea what's out there. So definitely keep asking questions and make sure your curiosity box is wide open.
One of my favorite quotes is, and I'm going to like abbreviate it, but basically that knowing is what stops you from learning. And so it's just go into everything with a learner mentality, which I think kind of echoes the curiosity side of it. But again, I did pre-law, I did pre-med, I did pre everything, and then here I landed, right?
Yeah.
But that was because I had just wanted to know about everything, and because you don't, again, the world's huge. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. I didn't even know Dow existed, and it was like 2 hours down the road. So you never know where you could end up or what you could be doing. And even once you're within a company, feel it out, especially a bigger company, there's lots of opportunities even within. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, all four of you, for walking us through your background, how you got here, and how to actually make a product come to life. So I'll pass back to Jenny from Project Glimmer, and thank you all.
Great. Yes. Thank you, Kylie, and to all of our panelists for sharing your careers. I loved hearing all about, the scientific method, and it was so relevant for students who are always learning that in science class. And you really put a great sort of new take on the products. I feel like I'm not going to look at them the same way again. So thank you all. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for spending the last hour with us. You will receive an email with Danielle with all of our panelists' LinkedIn profiles. So we encourage you to connect with everyone, and we will see you at our next Empower Hour. So thank you so much. Bye.